Yes, it is. Let's start our next community call and Ask Me Anything session. This week we have Pauly from Rarify apps and Rarecoin. I want to hand it over to Pauly himself to brief us into the whole project of Rarify so we learn about it more. And then let's continue our conversation and take it from there. Pauly, please.
Awesome. Thanks for having me here, guys. So I'm going to assume if you know a little bit about the project, that's okay. I'm going to do a nice overview of the whole thing if you don't know anything about it. Essentially, Rarify and Rarecoin are two separate things. So Rarify is kind of the small company. It's my company that I started with another seed investor, William. And we basically invented the cryptocurrency Rarecoin. And so the whole philosophy behind Rarecoin is to create a really decentralized currency that is 100% distributed. So we started distributing the coin in February. We originally took the first month's collection and then poured that into the liquidity pools in the HoneySwap. But essentially the whole goal of the currency is to become one of the most distributed currencies. And so we have a couple of very unique tokenomics to help achieve that. Rather than having to mine the coin with traditional currencies like Ethereum or Bitcoin, we simply decided to throw the entire supply into a smart contract on the XDAI blockchain. That lets us develop basically very simple apps that lets any users come and claim a share for very cheaply, rather than using Ethereum mainnet, which can cost up to $50 per transaction to basically get a little bit of the coin. Essentially, the tokenomics are pretty straightforward. There are only 36,500 tokens, and 2 of the tokens are released daily. The first token is distributed to a claiming app, which is secured by the BrightID community. Essentially, that one coin is distributed evenly every day to basically an unlimited amount of claimers that come in and claim a piece of it for that day. The other coin is specifically rewarded to the people hosting all the liquidity in the actual trading pools. So that's acting as an incentive for people that are putting up XDAI and their rare that they've collected or bought to earn a little bit extra while they're keeping it in the pool, the trading pool. That's kind of the general overview of the tokenomics. So what we plan to do with the currency is create a bunch of apps to drive demand for it. So essentially we've through Rarify apps, we're developing a bunch of different applications for the currency. We're going to be releasing a bunch of other partnerships released later this year. We'll be releasing a lottery system that will let anyone on the XDAI chain create their own lottery, and then part of the profits are shared back with the Rare community, and many other apps as well. Yeah, if anyone has any questions about it, let me know.
Could you briefly tell us where exactly are you using BrightID in the project?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the 2 rare coins is specifically sent to the claiming app. And so in order to protect against Sybil attacks, so many users trying to get more and more of that share for themselves, we're using BrightID as a system to make sure that only one user per claim is essentially getting that share. So it's protecting the distribution of that token that day. When we first originally started the project, we were actually having a lot of issues with that. Initially, we were only protecting the pool with essentially a small fee. And that fee was to, number one, try to serve as a way to protect against many people attacking. And the other thing was that fee is also our developer fee to help fund the system and fund our apps, creating more apps for the system. that's another cool thing is because we're not holding, we didn't take a big chunk of the supply for ourselves to fund the project. Our simple funding is 100% based on fees through apps that we develop. So we are never going to be selling on people who are buying the coin or holding the coin. But yeah, so BrightID is definitely an essential part of the Sybil resistance to protecting the share of the coin per day, essentially, to make sure that it's fairly distributed.
I see. So you're basically having the same approach that, for example, OneHive is having for their faucet. So we have a claiming page, and you're using BrightID as the anti-Sybil method to prevent people from getting multiple claims. I see.
Correct.
How
Yeah,
has
that's
that,
exactly.
how has that been for your users? What kind of feedback have you gotten from them?
It's a little bit challenging for people that are brand new for crypto to definitely go through the system, but we've released a lot of tutorials on the subject, and it's not too bad. Users are still able to follow the steps and then get verified so that they can make claims. But no, overall, it's been great. It's been a huge contributor to securing the actual claims. When we initially started, we had literally thousands of accounts, some of them going to just a single user through bots. And that we couldn't have that as part of the system. It didn't make Rarecoin the fair currency we initially set it out to be. So
yeah, it seems like Sybil problems are always worse than people think they are. We've had a few of us have been involved in projects. It's like, hey, my user growth is growing like great, like crazy. This is awesome. And then you find out, oh, because it's a small group of people creating hundreds, if not thousands of accounts.
Yeah,
That's not the user growth I was looking for.
Definitely not.
Yeah, you look at the IP addresses, or if you have some other analytics, you're like, wow, we had 100,000 new people last month, and they were all from one town in Vietnam. Okay, that's kind of weird.
And the population there is 600.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 100% accurate. We actually did discover a user with over 500 accounts who was, I think, paying. It was actually a pay farm attempt. They were paying users in, I think, Mexico to sign up with the claims. So it's a very serious thing. Yeah, and I'm so glad to be a part of the BrightID community, and having this system truly adds so much value to the project.
Thank you. I guess, yes, Sergey has a question about the lottery app that you talked about. He's
Yeah, for sure.
asking, how will the lottery work? Is it something like the no loss lottery in pool together, or will it use its own system?
No, so the lottery app is going to be sort of a self-serve lottery app. The initial one that we're rolling out next week is just a proof of concept. It's not going to be the full app. It's just going to be, we're going to be launching a lottery. We're going to have one rare coin up for grabs, and it would be a simple pay for ticket. The more tickets you have, the more chances you have to win. But with the later implementations, the one that I was actually discussing in the call so far, it's going to be a completely separate app that'll let users basically host their own lottery and essentially earn the ticket revenue for themselves. So, for example, if they had a few, let's say, honey coins, and they wanted to host their own lottery or do some sort of incentive programs for their users, let's say, they can join. They can basically host their own lottery, charge whatever they want. It could be free if they wanted it to, or they can charge a fee to, let's say do some fundraising for their app. They'll be able to do that through our app, all on the front end, and basically host their own lotteries.
Sergey says, will the tickets expire at some point in time?
Well, the tickets, any ticket that you would get would be only valid for that one lottery instance. So for example, it depends on the rules that that person or that type of lottery is running. So yeah, the lottery, as soon as you buy a ticket, once the lottery is done and the winner is announced, that's basically it, just like a standard lottery, if that answers the question.
I got a question. Jumping back to like the Sybil resistance aspect of BrightID. So currently there's like basically one algorithm running that verifies people to use the app. But it is possible to create one's own algorithm, run your own node that like adds different verification levels or different verification criteria. Do you see it on your roadmap anywhere, running your own BrightID node, and what might a verification level for your specific use case kind of look like?
It's definitely something we've considered. We haven't done too much research into the actual development and running our own servers yet, but we were looking at it initially. And yeah, it would be of the higher security later on, definitely, as we do want to limit the potential for multiple, well, at least newer users that are brand new to the BrightID system. We don't want, you know, any sort of coup happening where other users are, you know, getting people in or verifying them in order to basically have a bunch of basically fraudulent users on the lower trust level. So yeah, definitely would look into that, because we would want higher trust within the BrightID community and system to be able to claim, for sure.
Yeah, so the two main ways, and by the way, you don't actually have to run a server to get the higher verification. You don't have to run a node, but if you have a custom verification, you have to register that with the node. So you have to like get a node to, if it hasn't been created, to create it for you. But I think two of the
Happy to create it for you.
Yeah, we'd be happy to create it for you. Yeah. So anyways, I think the two approaches that are kind of the most useful. I just had a call today with a startup called Quay that is doing like local community-based voting, and they have a need for Sybil resistance, and both of the two options for stronger Sybil resistance came up, because they're like, yeah, we don't even want to have, you know, we thought about sending out postcards to households, but we don't even want like households to have more than, like, if they did something like set a cap on the household, they don't even want someone to have 5 accounts or 10 accounts. So they want to be really strict and like really limit it to one vote per person. And so the two kind of options are, number one, have a community, like a very strictly delineated community. Some apps have gone this way, where it's like you can't just go to any old community, you have to come to this particular community. So you could imagine, like, if it's a local voting app, that maybe you come to like the town hall or something like that, and you get verified there. So there's a very restricted community. The other way to do it is you have something that will roll out probably near the end of the year, which is Family Vouch. And what that is just a really strong, much stronger verification level. Basically, you need someone who can vouch for your entire family, like vouch for your entire household, and say, like, yeah, I have a history with these people. It's not like I just met them. I've known them for years. I know that this is how many kids they have in their family. This is how many adults. Like, I just know all these people, and I can vouch for all of them as a group. I know that no one's missing, no one's been added. And so by doing that, it really makes it really difficult for someone to split themselves up, because right now, what you can do to get the lowest verification level is you can kind of like split yourself up and go to a bunch of different communities, or even like try your luck going to different times of like BrightID calls and like getting a different group of moderators or something, or just bank on the fact that they don't really know you, that they just met you and they're not going to remember you. And so these types of things make it make these small scale Sybil attacks possible. And if you really want to nail those down and put an end to it, those two options that I mentioned are like I think at the forefront of how we're gonna squelch those small scale attacks. So yeah, definitely look out for those. If you do find out that you've got like, hey, I've got a community and all my community actually is getting to know each other and it's not just anonymous people collecting, then that's definitely one route. And if not, then you can hold out for the stricter route, which I would call that like, that would be our hope at having like UBI grade protection, where it's like, okay, this may be hard to get this. Hopefully not as hard as getting a passport or something like that, but it's still like a little, like you've got to do some legwork and get some people to connect to you that actually know you. But then it pays off because you can collect much higher rewards. You could potentially like collect a real UBI, like we're talking about thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars that you can collect if you get this really strong level of verification.
Sergey's next question is, what other apps do you have in mind for the future besides the lottery app?
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, we're going to keep expanding the line of use case for the rare coin cryptocurrency. Essentially, we want the currency, it's to act all on its own. We want to have an economy just for the currency. So at Rarify Apps, we're going to just keep building utility for it. We're kind of just like the first first developers to bootstrap the initial development and utility for the Rarecoin project. As Rarecoin itself is kind of more like a code is king essentially. So it's all secured by the code. It's all hard coded into the tokenomics, are all hard coded into the contract. So you can be assured that only 2 coins are going to be coming out per day, and they're going to be released, one to the claimers and one to the stakers. And so based on that benefit, we have a lot of security there. We know that there isn't going to be any major whales dumping the price or anything like that. And because of that, there are many other applications we can build into it. For example, we are working on a much larger project that is going to take a few years probably to develop. We'll be basically integrating into a full blockchain social media network, which will essentially plug into the staking liquidity app. And what that essentially means is that people will actually have to own Rarecoin in order to use the network. And the profits generated from that network will also feed back into the staking rewards. And so most of the apps that we develop out will actually feed back into the rewards for the stakers. So anyone who is staking now, the rewards are just going to keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger as we will be basically profit sharing back from our apps into that app itself. And so, yeah, a little bit more on the Inside Our Dream project. Yeah, it's going to be a social network based on the blockchain. It's going to be uncensored, basically posts that you can post. No one can take it down when you're on there. There's going to be actually a mini marketplace as well for people to run events, and it's all going to be crypto based. Another app that we're working on is the Easy Stake app, and it's going to basically, it's exactly the same as the staking app now, except it's going to be much, much more simpler for the average user to basically start earning interest on their money. So because of the way that the yields work, the yield is going to continue to rise in the staking app. And this Easy Staking app is basically just going to be a front end that'll let any user just basically with a credit card buy some XDAI, and it'll automatically show up in their account and it'll automatically buy rare and stake it without them having to actually do all the, buying rare, staking the honey pool, and then bringing it over to the app, and then doing all those steps. And so that's kind of geared at the more mainstream market to get a taste of basically DeFi. And on terms other apps, that's basically it for right now, or at least for this year and the next year. That's already quite a lot between the lottery app, the Easy Stake app, and Insider Dream Project. But definitely take a look at our roadmap link. I could post that in the chat. We will be updating that as we release or announce any other further integrations. Yeah, I'm just going to post that in the chat now. There you go. All right. Is there any other questions about the project?
Yeah, I got another question. So like on like a spectrum of like the different types of coins out there, we've got like store value coins, we've got governance coins, we've got like just different types of use cases for coins. Like where do you see Rarecoin kind of falling in that kind of like spectrum, I guess? Yeah.
I guess right now it would be most likely to describe it as a hold of value, just because it's really limited supply right now, and it's still going to be limited supply relative to the rest of the market and based on the distribution. And as utility grows, because of the way that we're only releasing 2 coins a day and it's 100% distributed, the last coins won't hit the market for the next 50 years. It's going to take literally 50 years for the entire supply to be released. So that gives a lot of time to build utility with the actual rare token itself. And so even if we have a relatively small utility right now within the first years, as we start to snowball and really start to build into a deeper market, the value of it should therefore increase as there's more buy pressure on the actual coin. But yeah, we really wanted to, after the coins are released, we really want the coin to flow between wallet to wallet. So we actually want to create, apps that will require the rare as a form of payment. So you actually need some sort of rare either to access an app or pay for a service or some other commodity on an app. And so, yeah, I guess hold of value is right now the primary use case for that currency. Yeah.
And do you have any plans in the future of potentially making like into a voting token or a DAO kind of structure where token holders have say over what the ecosystem does?
Yes, for sure. It was definitely something we explored. The only small issue with that is it's not so much an issue as there isn't necessarily a central, let's say, repository of tokens. There isn't going to be like a, like unlike the honey community where there is a pool of, basically funds in order to use in which way. And since that's kind of the primary use case for at least the DAO, the only real changes we can make to the protocol are just kind of shifting the fee structure, and that's just going to basically affect yield in the staking app. So since the actual tokenomics are pretty much, they're locked in, there's nothing we can really do about that. The only major changes that might have to take place would be, for example, if in the worst case scenario, if the XDAI chain were to fail in some way and we had to exit the chain, in that case, we would definitely need the community to vote in what direction would take in order to basically save the project. But definitely, it's definitely something we're considered. As far as we build more apps, there will be more money generated, and how much money we can share within the community, and where that gets spent. But yeah, right now the system is, if you are a staker, you're getting rewards. Like, we're sending them anyway. We're going to be building apps, and you're going to be getting you're getting a share of it. It's not, going to any other specific cause. It's basically coming back to you as the user.
Right. I guess like the fees that are generated from each app, like the claim app, like you pay like 10 cents or whatever every day, that goes to some sort of common pool. And as I assume more apps are created, that will be more of the case. So that could be like the pool of funds, which the users would then have some sort of say over how it gets spent, I guess, in my roundabout way of thinking.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense for sure. Yeah, and honestly, I would like to do that. I would like to set up some sort of thing like that, where Rare could be actually used as a voting token in specific situations, even if they were not that often. But definitely, I think there would be a use case for that. And it is something we are exploring for sure, especially as the ecosystem grows. For sure.
Cool. And you also mentioned, the doomsday scenario of XDAI kind of failing. Like, what are your considerations on I guess becoming cross-chain, or like what would your opinion be on where you might want to move, or where do you see the evolution of like layer 2s kind of going in like the mid to short to midterm?
As far as it implies to Rarecoin, XDAI really is kind of the base layer in which we're distributing the token. So once the coins are actually free to market, there's absolutely no reason why you can't go across chain and, let's say, host your liquidity on Polkadot or Polygon network for that reason. In fact, I think we might actually do that as well. If we build the lottery app to do cross chain, we will actually incentivize people on that chain to host their Rare in exchange for some of the profits generated on that particular chain. So for example, let's say Polygon network, if we release the lottery app, the version 2 on that network, we can't directly profit share from that version of the app back to the XDAI community, automatically at least. So what we would do is, from that version of the app, we would send that as a pool incentive, let's say on the actual Matic layer network. And so people will start to build some sort of reward system for people hosting liquidity on that chain. As far as other chains go, yeah, we can keep doing that for all the other EVM chains, I guess. And then the other thing that I wouldn't rule out is, in the future, this could be years down the road though, we don't know exactly. Once at least 25% of the supply is released, we might even go the route of building our own chain that is actually backed by Rare. So, and then that'll create a whole other economy and a whole other context, but it's way too far off, at least right now in the project, to go that far. But it was an idea we were just thinking about. Yeah, I hope that answered your question about layer 2s.
I can see Sergey's next question about NFTs, because they are mentioned in the roadmap. He says, what would a user have to do in order to earn those NFTs?
Yep. Okay. So yeah, are releasing 5 rare NFTs, and they're all going to have utility within the current app ecosystem. So the first 2 NFTs, the first one's going to be the most common, and that's going to give you basically 50% off fees within the staking app to start. We will add more utility to that exact NFT later down the road as we build up more apps. Then the rest of the NFTs will have their own utility. Most of them will provide some sort of bonus liquidity to the staking app. So for example, if you were to, let's say you had 1% of the staking liquidity in the app, that means that you would get 1% of the pool rewards for that stake. But if you had, let's say, the 50% bonus NFT, you would virtually gain 1.5% of the rewards that you're eligible to claim within that stake. So on terms of actually receiving them into your wallet, the first 2 are going to be completely different qualification. So for the first NFT, all you have to do is the first 250 users to buy a ticket on the the lottery app launching next month will automatically receive it as an airdrop. The second NFT that we're releasing, that one is actually a partnership between the Agave community. We're still looking at building out when it's going to be released and how you're going to be able to qualify for that one. As that one's kind of a partnership, and we're kind of working on both ends to make that happen. As far as the other NFT, the higher end, the more limited edition NFTs, those ones are all going to be basically fundraising for the lottery app. So the funds that are generated from the sale of those NFTs will go toward future lotteries and staking rewards and whatnot.
Okay, thank you. I want to know if there are any other questions or if there is anything that you folks want to talk about right now. If not, I want to.
wanted to talk about, well, first, before we get into any general questions, let's thank our guest.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You have to give him a special thanks.
But are there like no other questions? Because I can see that some people, Philip is doing that, but okay. Pauly, thank you for being here. Thank you for being our guest speaker and answering all these questions. And yeah, we love you for that, and we keep working with you on BrightID, trying to help out with Rarecoin and Rarify as the whole project. And yeah, we really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I was happy to be here. BrightID has definitely been a huge help for our project. The claiming is such a big part of the tokenomics structure, and the Sybil resistant is definitely super valuable to us. If anyone else has any other questions, you can reach out to me on our Telegram group. It's Rarify_community on Telegram, or Rarify apps on Twitter. And you can find out all the details about our app at rare.fyi. That's it. That's actually the address, rare.fyi. And you can find all the information about the project there.
Nice. So I wanted to go to a question that Joran asked me privately, but I think that this is, we touched on it a little bit, so maybe we can get into it a little deeper. He said, tell me more about like different verification options that might be available in the future. So where do you want to take that, Joran? Like, let's talk. We've got a little bit of time. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, if I were an app using BrightID and I wanted to, make a higher level of verification, how would I start? What would I do?
Yeah, so what you do is you talk to a node operator, and this, I'll just give you an example of an app that did this. So Figment Learn said we want one level of verification for just like foot in the door type users, and then we want like for some there we want for certain rewards there to be a higher verification level. And we talked about what that might mean, and they said, well, we just want it to be like this specific, they have to connect with this specific community so that we can, you know, keep better track of this like smaller pool of elite users or whatever. So we just set it up so that there's actually a right now it's centralized, but we've been talking about how to decentralize it. But we have this centralized registry of apps that the BrightID nodes pull from. And if you talk to any node operator, they can help you get your app added to that registry. That's kind of like part of one of the steps to get listed on the apps tabs, and also apps.brightid.org is to get on that registry. But one of the things you put in that registry is you put what your app defines as its verification, and there can be multiple verifications, but there's a like one default verification, and then you can actually at query time. So there's a query language which you can use in the API when you're querying for a verification, where you can ask about a different verification. So it's kind of free form. So you can actually construct a query to the API that says, tell me everyone that is verified by being connected to this particular seed node, or this particular seed group. And so that's what they have done, and that's something that you could do. That's so like some of the other options that we have in there, we have something called Yekta, which is based on it's based on how well connected you are in the graph. So some of it has to do with like just the number of connections you've been making. So it does take some extra work to get that one, and also just how centralized those connections are. So you can access all the Yekta levels through that custom like query language. You can access all the different seed groups. So you could like list which ones you want. And so you can do these custom queries, and you can get back a list and see how many of the users would hit those. You can also look at the verification methods on the BrightID Explorer, explorer.brightid.org, and see who would fit these different verification levels. And once you hit on one that you like and you want to use it as a default, you can either, so you can change that with your app. And then if you don't add that extra parameter into the API query, you'll just get back your default. But if you do, you can like customize it with, you don't have to talk to even a BrightID node operator. You can just customize your verification query and get back any of these, like you can assemble these little pieces that make up a verification in any way that you want using and an OR logic. So yeah, that's how you do it. And then there's also, obviously, I kind of alluded to some upcoming new kinds of stricter verification levels that don't exist yet, because they involve connection levels that don't exist yet. So any follow-up questions based on that?
No, that seems pretty reasonable. So you would contact a node operator and ask them to institute this particular logic for you, or you could end up running your own node and then institute that own logic, and then you
actually, it's simpler than that. All you have to do is query. So we don't have a guide on how to do this. We should probably make one. There hasn't been a lot of demand for it, but it's just, you don't have to run a node. You don't even have to talk to a node operator to play with this stuff. You just have to construct the logic yourself. So if you can build out the logic of this query that says like, okay, I want this, I want people that have this attribute and this attribute or this attribute. So you construct like this, these logical parameters, and then you send that in as part of your verification query, and it will return back to anyone who's verified according to those parameters. So you can customize it without just on your own, and even use it within your app on your own. The only time that you have to talk to a node operator is if you want it to become the default, and let them know what your default is. So really, yeah, you don't have to run a node or even talk to a node operator to start playing with this stuff. You probably do need to, like, because like I said, it's not even, I don't think the documentation is anywhere other than in the code itself. You'll probably need to talk to one of our devs just to like get help formulating that query properly. But yeah, once you understand it's a pretty simple language. I think it uses, it's not a language that we invented. It's like a very simple, like non-Turing complete language that we borrowed from somewhere. Anyways, it's like this very simple language for constructing these kind of like and or statements that we borrowed from somewhere on the web. So it's like a very standard way of doing that. Yeah, but you also have to understand like what goes into it, and the way to learn that is by looking at explorer.brightid.org. You can see the different verifications that are being computed.
So theoretically, if I wanted to only allow somebody that is connected with me on my app, I could say like in my query parameter, like look for my BrightID identifier, and any connections I have, those are verified. Is that like rudimentarily what you're saying?
So one of the so it's not that detailed. So one of the so you have to, your basic building blocks are not something that's that detailed. Your basic building blocks are predefined verifications that we have. And so some of the ones we have are being connected to a specific seed, like these different yecta levels, and also let's see, what is it? Oh, I think there's one. Let's see. Yeah, specific seeds. I think there's one that's like any seed, and that's kind of like the default one for most apps. And then there's yeah, just those different yecta levels. I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything. I think that may be all that we have right now. So you get to mix and match those. So you can say, so what you could do is you could say, okay, I am going to be the Joran seed group of one. Well, actually you can't, because you need 3 people in your seed group. It's better for management purposes. But you can get your small community, you can create a seed group around it, and you could say, okay, like you must connect to us directly, and that's the only way to get verified, and you can make that your level.
Okay.
I'm bullish on Joran coin. Hey, Adam, what's the definition of in the system for dollar for everyone? How is that one written?
So the dollar for everyone, the way it works, so that is a highly customized one. So the one that you actually said, Joran, where you said they must be connected to me, you could actually code that up. And so there is, yes, if you run your own node, or even if you submit code like that you wrote in Python to a node operator and tell them, hey, run this code for me, then you can have like highly customized verifications. And so, yeah, Philip's talking about one where it literally says, like, I think they have like a hard-coded list that says, if you connect to one of these 5 people, like that is one of the building blocks and the requirements. Like you've got to do this other stuff, and you've got to be connected to one of these 5 people or 10 people or whatever's on the list. So that is one way to do it. So, but I think the seed groups are more flexible, because you can change.
You could do it by yourself if we've already done it. But if we haven't already done it, as long as you're working with a node or run your own node, the flexibility is endless. You can have whatever weird bespoke thing that you want.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can just run that yourself, or you could send the Python script to a node operator and they could run it for you. I'm happy to run.
And I think there's something very attractive about that kind of idea. One, from a decentralization standpoint, like we want to have more nodes, but two, from like you were saying, like a bespoke, very unique use case for specific communities. Because, like, you know, as we talked about earlier, like it is still possible to game the system as it is right now, and the more unique we make each app's verification process, I think the more difficult it becomes to game the entire system, right? Like layers of security. And then once we have enough unique pieces, then we can start using them as ands, right? We can say you must be verified at this and that, and I think it makes it much more robust.
Early on, before we very early on how it worked, we had the idea of stickers. Basically, there were going to be all these different ways that you could get verified, right? All these different bespoke things, and each time you got one, you got a sticker. It's kind of like a little co-op on your account. You could accumulate lots and lots of them, and the more stickers someone had, like the more likely that they are verified. And like which stickers matter, you know? So it may be that, oh, dude, elephant stickers are really hard to get, and like that means something. But monkeys, dude, anybody can get a monkey sticker. Those are easy. And we started playing with that and even coded. It was true. There were a few stickers.
We had some stickers. Yeah.
And we didn't know how to make it work from like a user experience.
Yeah.
So we kind of moved away from it, and this was really early. And people just needed something. I feel like now that we did the base level something, like now it's time to start leaning into some of that more bespoke stuff.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, anybody, like getting a connection party sticker, that's really easy. We all know what it means. You know, it's a really good CAPTCHA, right? There's no computers, there's no actual bots that are getting through that.
Yeah, you can't run a program to do that.
You can't script it to get one, but you can certainly come. And as we get more and more parties, more and more connection parties, people could move around. We're not saying those people are unique, but we are sure that they are humans. And at some point, you know, AI deepfakes may get to the point that that's not even at all useful because those could get through. We're not there yet. So today, it still remains a really robust tool against bots, but it's not proof of uniqueness like we like to suggest.
Yeah. And I think what you said about the stickers, I think that concept, that paradigm is something that we want. It works behind the scenes. And it's something that we definitely want to have, even if it's not something that we show to the users. The reason we took it out is because it requires like an extra layer of mental work to connect the dots between, okay, I got verified, I got this sticker. Is this the sticker this app wants? I don't know, let me go check. And so we kind of reduced that by saying, okay, now you just look and see if you're verified for the app. Like, do you have the verification the app cares about? You don't need to know what that is. They can tell you what it is. Like they can tell you maybe what you might still have to do to get verified, but you don't have to like connect all the pieces yourself. So that works. And what was I going to say? Yeah, I don't remember, but I look forward to I look forward to what apps will decide that they need. And oh yeah, I remember what I was going to say. I think where this becomes really powerful is something that we talked about last week, which is that that the system feeds back into itself, because you have an app that is learning about people's behaviors by watching how honest they are within the app, because there are definitely behaviors that that people can see. Like if you're running an app or using an app, you can see some behaviors that seem sketchy, that are like, it's like when if you see like people funneling money to one account, or people are, I don't know, there's just certain activities that maybe some some are more objective than others, but you look at it and you're like, okay, that is not normal behavior. And then you might look at someone else and be like, okay, like this is a good actor within this app. Like this person is doing all the right things. They're contributing, they're helping, and we think that they're like a really honest, good user. And that should be able to feed back into BrightID, so that if you're a good actor in one app, that should give you some like seed points that go back into helping you verify people around you in the graph. And it becomes sort of this like decentralized system of, by me using a bunch of different apps and using them correctly, and I earn seed power that allow me to like get the people around me verified as well. And so that's going to be really sweet once we have those sorts of loops.
Yeah, that would be highly, highly beneficial, even within our context, within the claiming, to make sure that if we do catch any unlikable behavior of someone cross, basically sending all their money to one account and then selling it from like multiple bright IDs, let's say, for example, then yeah, that's not really great within our app. Also, just massive potential in order to build finance lending tools, which we had lots and lots of ideas for, but we just do not have the tech. And that would be definitely the first stepping stones on actually creating a very, very useful decentralized lending protocol, if not direct lending between one party to another, building trust within that system. And then, based on that trust developed within that app, you can scale out your lending power per se, building your credit and allowing you to lend more and more money, eventually to the point where you could buy a house. That would be the dream, but or lend enough money from that, the decentralized system to buy a house without having to go to a bank. But that would be amazing.
That would be amazing. And so I think what we're going to reach is a point where it pays much more to be a good actor than it pays to be a bad actor. Like doing things correctly and building up your reputation from all these different apps is much more powerful to you personally than throwing it all away by creating some Sybils and destroying any reputation that you may have built up from these apps. So I think that's what's going to carry us to the end game, where where this whole system wins out, is when it starts becoming much more profitable to do the right thing. So I really look forward to that. Okay, I think we're near the end of the time. Is Basler still here? Oh, he says he's got it. Okay, so we've got to end it ourselves. So let's stop the recording. Thank you everybody for showing up, for having questions. And this will, yeah, if you want to know more, come to our Discord, go to brightid.org. And let's close down the recording and make some connections. So I'll see you next time.
Okay, cool. Just